Okay, so consciousness, is the presence of world face, of the phenomenal field. Basically, the world is in the style and the character of the stream of experience of a primate. Now, of course, many philosophers have really got themselves into a mess, saying, well, that means, the experienced world is inside the primate's brain. Now, I can dig like the initial temptation, but there's something, there's like a basic floating mouth belief here in that when people make this argument, they're talking to other people in the world that they view as not them, as genuinely outside of them. So they're saying that the world is inside their own brain as they earnestly engage in debate about whether, the world is inside people's brains, right? So the forum is enacted, right? So there's something wrong with this approach, right? Now, people can say that that experience is a mediation of a true reality. This is where you get primary and secondary qualities. Now, this is initially more reasonable, but let me ask you this. I wear glasses because I have terrible vision, okay? If I lose them, I can't find them because I can't see them. I can't see them well enough to find them. So when I look through my glasses, am I looking at the inside lens of my glasses, or am I looking at the car in front of me? Like, I'm on the interstate, okay? I'm wearing my glasses. So I would be crazy to put my glasses on if I was, looking at my the inside of my glasses instead of the car that, might kill me or get me killed, right? So when you look at the care structure, it's not that you sort of resolve the issue within, an idealized theologic, right? My theologic, this joke is about this sort of, there's a naive enacted prejudice about how signs work, and this naive sense that marks and sounds somehow can magically mirror this thing that they call a true reality, right? Now, I am a primate, so I see through my eyes. Subjectivity is bias. We're all primates. But there's this kind of typical imaginary leap out of primate flesh, okay? So the empirical world is from a point of view tautologically trivially, but I don't mean in terms of, the mystified theologic. This is a pointer, okay? What people usually mean by the empirical world is the experienced world, right? Empiricism, experience. Why am I an empiricist? Well, seeing is believing. So this is, the philosophy of the blood, right? So Hume saw that we really can't, he didn't think we could deductively justify the uniformity of nature. This is called the problem of induction. So we are just these crazy dogs who expect tomorrow to be like yesterday, at least in some essential way, right? Whatever has worked for us so far, that will work for us tomorrow. Now, we may theoretically say, well, you can't, I've read Hume. I don't, I know that the future is in theory, completely open and contingent, right? And I hear you, and I respect that. However, your body does not listen to Hume. Your body will not understand Hume. And you will forget in a moment, and you will be like all of us. It's insane. It's insane, and yet it is the definition of sanity. The whole joke. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting something, to get a different result, this is supposed to be insane. So, in a certain sense, it is the definition of sanity. It's our blood deep faith in the uniformity, the temporal and spatial uniformity of nature. But it's also like deductively nothing. I mean, there's no proof of this. So that's interesting. So Hume, in a certain sense, put a nail through the heart of metaphysics. This is, one of the things that got Kant excited. Okay, why do I mention this? Because science is battle tested. So science is a tool for meeting the future, right? Basically, a scientific model, it's an analogy. It's a system of marks and noises over here, which are real empirical things in the world that, somehow we are trained to relate them to, this cannon over here and this cannonball. And I will use the little marks and noises to tell me how to aim the cannon, right? So you see there are two things in the world, a game with marks and noises and actual cannonballs. Okay, I got called away, so there's going to be like a discontinuity. So I was on the forum, and speaking of the forum, and I was thinking about the self-assertion. Like, so when you do philosophy and you ask someone to prove that there is an external world, or to prove that you share the same objects, you're enacting, in that very request, a belief in shared objects, a belief in the external world in the sense that matters most, which is the shared empirical world, right? This is the forum. Like, you're trying to prove something to people. You're trying to assert yourself. You enact your belief that your words deserve respect, that people owe you an explanation. You might not understand yourself as bringing words that mirror an objective reality. Now, many people do. For many people, they sort of enact the prejudice that philosophy is about finding chains of signs that somehow mirror, with their immaterial meaning, a meaning-structured true reality. This is a deep prejudice that people take for granted. This is one of the reasons I realized that the concept of truth as correspondence almost forced people into dualism. So it was one of the last big moves that I had to make, sort of in my own approach. It's one of the last prejudices that I could excavate. The word truth is meaningless except as an indicator of belief, and yet that is not a truth, right? I'm not trying to mirror the truth about truth. It's a pointer. It's the recognition of a prejudice. It's the recognition that we at least we have another path through the woods where we try to take belief as primary, right? So belief is primary. The word true is a way to indicate belief that is always situated. So I'm ready to go deeper into that now, right? So thinking about Peirce and Heidegger, and this psychoanalytic pragmatism, right? Belief is fundamentally, core belief is your meat and your bones doing things in the world, right? When you drive across the bridge without fear, you believe that the bridge will hold you. You don't even think about it. It's sub-theoretical, it's sub-verbal. And when you go toward someone with open arms because they just got off the plane, this is automatic, and it shows what you believe your relationship with that person is, right? And when you assert yourself on the forum, on the philosophy forum, right, you enact your belief that your words are not only there for them in this sensory fashion, the sonic quality, but that your words are also going to be significant for them. You're going to enact a belief that they will mostly understand you. Now, the more you do philosophy and the more you talk about very difficult concepts, the more you actually get used to not being understood. And then you have to become patient, and you depend on temporal depth. So you write weird stuff that only a few other people are going to be in a position to understand. So this is one of the weird things about doing philosophy. If you add to the tradition, or if you have the audacity to think that you can say something after Heidegger, well, that, for one thing, most of the people on the forum are enacting prejudices that I would say that the strong philosophers have already pointed out, right? So the tradition, the state of the art of the tradition, is beyond most people. Naturally, this is very difficult stuff. It's not practically rewarded, right? And this is my own situated judgment, right? So I sort of confess my own appropriation of the situation, and someone else might think me foolish. I run the risk of being misunderstood, right? But I thematize this risk. There is poetic self-assertion, and in this poetic self-assertion, you can see yourself as bringing the truth. You can see yourself as bringing chains of signs that have perhaps a vaguely liberating effect that you cannot anticipate, right? You can see yourself as bringing a pharmacon, a poisoned gift, a poison that is good for some people, to consume. So this meat belief, this primary belief, right? The pragmatism, I might even call it proto-pragmatism. So the metaphysicians, and I use the metaphysician, I use this term in a situated local context, right? I'm using metaphysics in a pejorative sense from the point of view of the positronic pragmatist. The metaphysician basically understands the task to mirror this true reality thing, this theological notion that's trans-empirical, right? So the metaphysician is a researcher into the trans-empirical in terms of the infinite divine logos, the theologic, and they can be hardcore atheistic, scientistic, and this is what I guess amused me, because I was and really still am pretty atheistic. I try to be very carnal, and you might say based in blood and guts reality, right? So I have this literary background. Like James Joyce is one of my heroes. But, I really love science, right? So empirical science, I do a lot of work with computers and mathematics. So when I started to see, the weird theological tinge of this atheistic physics mysticism, first I started to correct my own prejudices, and I realized how much hand waving was involved, right? So in formal terms, I want to be realistic, but it's weird in philosophy. Everything's upside down. Realism, it's a term that tends to be applied to what I would call trans-empirical mysticism with a scientific paint job. Realism in mathematics is like associated with mathematical Platonism. So everything that is distant from the sensory experience of a primate, that is called realism. Everything that sticks to the genuinely empirical world, which is the world for the embodied primate who therefore gives a fuck, right? Everything that stays close to this lived true materialism of fire that burns, and chocolate that tastes good. This is called anti-realism. So this is the upside down world of the seminary. Now we could speculate how this happened. It's probably related to the the departmentalization and the institutionalization of like analytic philosophy, its desire to be a kind of pseudophysics, its embrace of formalism, and the embrace of formalism encourages the flattering vision of mathematical Platonism. There are exceptions to this rule, and they're a great post-analytic philosophers, but I'm sort of speaking from my forum experience. And then when I do run into what I call physics mystics, they have learned maybe some math via physics, but they usually have not really thought much about philosophy of math. Wittgenstein, people love to quote Wittgenstein, but like so many people don't really know what to make of meaning as use. They quote it like a platitude. Well, meaning as use, I've already went into that elsewhere, but basically we are primates trading marks and noises, and our primary mode is keeping our asses out of the fire, right? The primary mode of language, these are sounds and marks with consequences. So they're almost like machine parts in the organism of a community, right? If it like the cry is the eagle, you pay your landlord a certain number of dollars. The IRS says you owe them this much. These little symbols, they are connected to prison sentences, right? Or the wrong little numeral, you get injected with too much drug in the hospital and you're dead, right? The ground of mathematics is in the co-enactment of numerals, right? Roles for numerals in life, in the empirical world that matters to us, right? So animals in the world living together, cooperating, inheriting a still and always already in progress, deadly serious game of marks and noises in the context of other empirical objects that can, hurt us or help us, or, they're just in our way. So yeah, I'm over here. Anyway, a smoke detector came, someone gave me these extra smoke detectors in case I needed them, right? And I was thinking about smoke detectors, right? Why do people put up smoke detectors? Well, there you go. That is the care structure, okay? I'm afraid that I'll die in a fire or all my stuff will be burned up, right? So I can imagine this highly unpleasant, disvalued possibility, and therefore I go to the trouble and the expense of putting up a smoke detector to head off danger. That is the care structure. I act now, even you might say, suffering a sort of low-level disvalue. Like I put off watching, an episode of Deadwood. I've got to put up this stupid smoke detector, right? Maybe it's not fun for me, but it's, this potential disvalue in the future is acting on my hands now to put up this smoke detector. Or I've stayed up, way too late. So I set 2 alarm clocks, and I have definitely done this. My schedule oscillates wildly because I'm a crazy night owl. So I'm be like, man, I might sleep through this 1 alarm, and I have got, I teach. I'm an adjunct professor, and I would be so embarrassed and mortified if 20 students showed up and I didn't show up. And I've never missed a class, and I have went to class without being able to sleep at all the night before, and it actually went pretty well. They kind of enjoyed my loopiness. Okay, but you see the point. I'm going to, this disvalue, this imagined disvalue of being, late or of not showing up at all, right? That acts on me, when I'm really tired, right? I've stayed up too late, but I still gather, a second alarm clock. Really, I think I would use my phone right next to my head where I slept, and also I had this loud alarm clock. And I'll throw in one more, more strictly scientific thing. So cubism, and I don't mean ontocubism. Chris Fuchs, it's basically it's an interpretation or an approach to quantum mechanics, and I would say that it is especially grounded because basically this is my paraphrase, and he may say, "Nah, that ain't it," but I'm pretty sure he would like this. Quantum mechanics is advice for gamblers, okay? And this is really for science in general. So the future is not perfectly predictable or controllable. He understands that these theories, they tell us, how to approach the present in terms of a specified expected future. It's sort of like going into the casino of the world, and at least the ideal mathematical odds. So this is one of the few interpretations of quantum mechanics that I'm aware of that isn't just sort of mathematical Platonism. The wave function is more real than the measurers who care about the results. And we talk about measurement, and that is important, right? But what is even more important is that my flash drive doesn't fail and I lose, all the pictures from my childhood or whatever, or all the work I've done on this album with the boys, right? If the bridge collapsed when I'm driving over it, or when people I love are driving over it, that fucking sucks. That sucks a lot more than some, measurement that doesn't work out right. So, the measurements are directed toward technology that matters to us, and, often in a life and death way, and also in just this life project way, in that we try to realize ourselves as individuals in terms of a project that is largely singular. Now the more artistic you are, the more singular your project is, but just trying to be a good father and get to the little league game, that deserves just as much respect. So this is the kind of informal realism that I associate with Heidegger. But when you have academics in English, and a lot of them are great, but still, I think I'm trying to find the language that really matches the sense of reality. And I'm also trying to integrate Peirce, and there are other rhetorical strategies that you can use in English, right? If you get beyond the kind of the fanboy stage, and I think this is not necessarily a bad stage. Like, you should sort of you want to approach the other charitably, like, well, other people that I think are smart talk up this dude. So you approach someone charitably, and I think that's great. But you're also, and I think if you become audacious enough to think that you could add a little something, right? If you make your own poetic self-assertion, then you're going to have to, engage in riskier paraphrases, and pursue tangents in adjacent terrain.